Moment Factory is a Canadian company based in Montreal and in Los Angeles. So, and also you're talking to to many different organizations. So that's really interesting. And you have a different approach about, engaging people. So that's why we thought it would be interesting to hear from you. So you want to be crazy, you want to be wild, you want to be dangerous. So that's really very exciting. And yes, I think it would be good to hear your thoughts and to start with you this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Clémence. Thank you very much, Corinne. So I don't know how ready you are not only to be engaged, but to be woken up very quickly. My name's Amahl Hazelton. I'm head of communications for our destinations segment of Moment Factory, which is our placemaking segment. You're going to see I like presenting today. I'm going to keep myself very strictly to 20 minutes because I also like just as much or more to have time for questions and answers. So I'm going to run through 3 different things. I'm going to run through the way that what we do, first and foremost, so you understand what we do, quickly how we do it, and a few examples of projects that we've done. But more importantly, I'm going to spend time on what we see as our engagement toolkit. It's a series of interactive layers that we are designing into many, many different kinds of environments. Some of them are museum, but I think what you'll see, and where you'll see the reason in my title, is that museums, like many other destinations, share a common challenge, a common objective, and that is to actually build visitorship, to engage people before they make it to a museum, to engage them when they come in, to engage them through the entire process, to have more visitors, to have people spending longer, engaging in more meaningful ways within your destination environment, and telling other people about it, and ultimately wanting to come back, that the environment itself and the experience that it offers can be renewed. So you're going to see a host of different tools that we've brought, and I'm not going to focus on the museum environment. I'm going to bring in a lot of examples from the other types of clients that we've had and the other types of philosophies that we've applied to this. So we'll go very quickly through this. Multimedia Art and Entertainment Studio. We create digital experiences for all kinds of temporary live entertainment and permanent installations. We've got a very deep expertise. We have all of the skill sets in our company needed to execute not only the design of the technology, the hardware, the system, software, programming, etc., but also the content that goes into it. And in the museum context, we collaborate a lot with clients who want to really safeguard the authenticity of their story while bringing in a level of emotion that creates the visitor engagement that people are looking for. Now, wide experience. We've got 15 years. We've been existing since 2001, very much anchored in entertainment and show business for the first 8 years or so of our existence. Big thanks to companies like Cirque du Soleil, who paved the way, opened the doors, offered the opportunities for our firm to create the kind of visual experiences that entered into their very, very ambitious experiences. We've got over 400 productions to our name, and we deliver about 50 or 60 major projects per year. I mentioned shows. We create spectacles, and at the center of this, you'll see what we call themed experiences. Sometimes we call them narrative experiences in the case of museums. That is a project we were invited by the Musée des Beaux-Arts of Montreal to participate in, which was the traveling exhibition of Jean-Paul Gaultier, that's the staircase of Grand Palais. And that was an interactive installation that we created sort of as a centerpiece, a feature that would engage people in a Jean-Paul Gaultier inspired environment as they came into the exhibition. Ceremonies, events, experiential marketing, concerts, and all kinds of signature shows for resorts, cruise ships, etc. And then destinations, what kind of placemaking are we involved in? Everything from commerce and retail through what we've become quite famous in Quebec for, which is parks. We've got now a 4th nocturnal multimedia night walk that's opening over the winter. something that I'll be telling you a little bit more about because it's attracted a whole new visitorship into the regional destinations that had declining tourism. Public spaces, you see Los Angeles Airport, the new terminal identity. I'll be talking a lot about identity. Why? I'm an urban planner, probably the only urban planner involved at a senior level in a multimedia firm in the world. But my training was in identity. How can we distill what is most authentic, most meaningful in the stories of a place and its people, and direct that, communicate that identity vis-a-vis all of the gestures, the architectural spaces and the experiences that we offer at a destination, such that that space authentically tells the story of its place and its people. Resorts and leisure, arenas and stadiums, massive infrastructure, which is increasingly looking for a flexible multimedia platform to tell its story. What kind of clients have we worked with? I've mentioned here a few museum clients, but it goes much larger, from Cirque du Soleil to many of the major artists in the world, Madonna, John Bon Jovi, Celine Dion, through to now cities, Barcelona, City of Montreal. You'll see one of our projects when you're in Montreal, which was my baby before I joined Moment Factory, which was the Quartier de Spectacle, and a cultural district for the downtown that uses multimedia on the buildings, projections on buildings, lighting on buildings as a programmable environment where artists can express themselves. We've got all of the different skill sets, like I mentioned. How we work, we've got 4 departments. 3 are very front and center. We create content, we create the systems that deliver content into a physical environment, and we design the architecture and the hardware, projection systems, LED displays, etc. But we've also got a very creative project management team who tries to be invisible as possible, but supports the interface between a client and all of our teams as we assemble them. Each project is very different, very custom, and increasingly there's this connectivity between these departments where we're not putting a DVD into a player and playing an experience that's always the same every time somebody visits, but it's interactive. It goes 2 ways. There's information coming from an environment as people walk into it, as we detect their motion, etc., and then as they come out the other side, it changes that content, much more like a video game type of approach. All of this is intended to create engagement, and that leads to our motto, our credo, which is we do it in public. The video that I'm going to show you now explains some of our growth of our vision from the idea of light as the original point around a campfire, coming together, sharing stories, sharing history, sharing culture, to today where we can use light in a much more complex way to continue doing that, bringing people together around the central core of a story.
It's a little bit like the campfire in the sense that people have gathered since the beginning of time around campfires to tell stories and gather in communities. And now that fire has changed and the technology is
is about the people, it's about the team, it's about all those people that are contributing to the project. So we is about a culture, it's about a way of thinking whereby everybody is working together as a team.
We value a variety of different inputs. We take from everything around us.
We've been really lucky to have such an amazing variety of clients throughout the years, whether they're rock stars, cities, museums, brands, and this collaboration that we managed to create within these different projects taught us so much throughout the years, and we've really grown through our relationship with all these great people.
All the experience we design here takes place in different environments, in different contexts, with different kind of public. It's really a great opportunity for a creator to be able to each time have a different canvas.
The risk is an essential element. Placing people in a state of being allowed to be wrong and make errors, it's going to give them the confidence to really push the limits and try new stuff. And this is where innovation comes.
Pushing the boundaries of our work, doing magic, hijacking technologies, doing lots of R&Ds, trying to figure out how we can bridge between cool stuff happening in other industries, bringing them to our works.
I find the magic is the alchemy between how we deal with technology and how we customize technology to suit our own purposes. We use interactivity and technology to bring people together in the same space and engaging with our content, with our story.
We live to experience. When we create experiences, we're creating a moment of people's lives.
How can I make the people feel the same amount of excitement in this moment that I'm feeling now while I'm creating it?
It's such an emotional feeling when you pour your heart and soul into a piece of work and then you have the crowd give that same level of magic back.
The emotion is at the core of all our projects, and I think that's what also defines us and differentiates us as well.
So it's the combination of all these things that we really care about. That we think that this collaboration can create a new campfire, a digital campfire, and that it can foster communion and bring people together in new ways that we can't even imagine today. And that's why we do it in public.
So that's a bit about our philosophy, taking us through the origins of light, storytelling, architectural spaces for ritual, through to the modern interior environments that were enabled by light, through the platforms of cinema, TV, mobile devices, home entertainment systems, now to the digital devices. We get asked a lot about what are the trends vis-a-vis mobile devices, VR. We don't believe in VR. We believe VR will pass very quickly, if not immediately, to augmented reality, mixed reality, where we're starting to combine medias. This instinct that kids, that humans have to want to engage with the content in their environment is there. If it's not there, they'll pass very quickly from a paper, a more traditional format. We're witnessing that in all kinds of different industries. And they'll want to go back to the digital one. I'm not saying that that's a value assumption associated with it being better, but it does attract engagement. It does attract an instinctive way of connecting with a story. So what kind of engagement are we seeing in trends? One thing is seeing a public space, for example, as not simply a series of disconnected exhibits, but a connected environment. So this is an approach that we're being asked a lot to consider, is how does the entire ecosystem of this destination speak to the story that it's trying to tell? Each of you have museums with very, very different collections, very different programs, vocations, identities, and as we're going everything from the online experience before you arrive through as you enter in to gateway portal exhibits. This is an example of LAX. Maybe you don't see yourself in this. However, all of these different environments have different dwell times, have different objectives, what they want to communicate to somebody within a certain specific amount of time. So we have welcome walls as people arrive in the space. We have departure walls as they leave. And storyboards telling the story of the space. All of these kinds of approaches of an ecosystem that's linked together, we've taken into very different contexts, from a downtown airport in LA to the forest of Quebec with Foresta Lumina. Once again, a network, an environment where people have staged experiences as they move through that, and increasingly they're not just unidirectional experiences, but they're experiences in which they can be recognized, they can influence and even control the content in many cases. What becomes more narrative about that is how we try and distill the authentic stories of this destination into that canvas. So we've got all kinds of characters derived from the local tradition, French settlers, English settlers, and from First Nations mythology and legend. And those come into play in this space. So now that raises the question, why interact? With Moment Factory, interaction is fundamental to engagement. There is a limited amount of attention people will want to spend with non-responsive environments, and to the extent that they don't change, that they're not flexible, they are very difficult to renew. And so people coming back for a second or a third time, will you be getting those audiences if in some way the environment and the experience is not different? 360-degree engagement how, I challenge you guys to talk to me about how you've seen connecting people to your environment and your exhibits and your vocation before they ever make it to the museum. How do you become top of mind? Once they're there, what are you offering? And then as you leave, what do people want to share? What is the message they want to communicate to the world? What is the engagement that meant something to them that they're going to tell people about as they leave? User experience design. People are very focused on our screens, on our interfaces. We see the entire 360-degree environment, X, Y, Z, as our UX. Space, users, and behaviors. Many of the installations that we're called on to collaborate on are not thought through for the ergonomy or the ergonomics of how people are going to use that space. Sometimes it's much too high resolution. You're spending far too much on technology and not enough on the experience itself. And in other cases, the experience requires too much time, etc., for environment. So we're looking for experiences that can be adapted to any context. That is something that allows you as museum owners to keep building on a toolbox as you start building into your digital narrative to reuse certain building blocks out of that. And create perhaps elements of storytelling and engagement at every level of your destination, from everything from the facade to interior space, iconic installations, or simple things like navigation in the stories of interactive tables, but seeing that as a whole and not as an end in and of itself. VR, I mentioned VR. We see our expanded UX toolbox as something very, very interesting and valuable. It's 5 simple elements that we see as being key to engaging interactivity. One is touch. One is body movement, one is connected objects, and one is devices. How do people's own devices, often museums and places are coming to us a lot, they're spending a lot of money on technology, they're worried about people stealing it, using a device, a tablet to move through their environment. Everybody's coming with their own portable device. If we can activate those, how can that become part of the visitor and their experiences, the device and themselves as one unit? Connected visuals, a little less interesting for you, the idea of using data visualization. Generative environments is something we're doing a lot with clients. Touch, tactile engagement with artistic on the one hand, so very visually appealing, and informative content. It's telling you something you want to know. And there's all kinds of ways that that can happen through multi-screen systems. The touch screens themselves do not need to be touched. We've now got very, very powerful scanners that can detect movement in an environment, and so people can be standing there. They don't need to touch, you don't need to clean, take germs off of things. These public space surfaces become something that people want to have to maintain as little as possible. So how can you keep people from touching things but keep them engaged and in touch? Real-time effects and impressive games. You've mentioned that partly in the program today there will be, or tomorrow, there will be people from the video game industry. It's an amazing challenge to not just didactically convey a story, but how do we imagine stories within which people find and can navigate their own way? We were invited down to the American Museum of Natural History a few weeks ago to talk about the future of theater. Want to invest in a major new theater? Do we want a traditional model with seats sitting down, people go in, 400 people for an hour, and out next batch in? Or do we want to create a more malleable, fluid environment where people come in, are transported somewhere? Maybe they all don't get the same experience, but that could be okay. So creating an environment that is partly game. We're seeing a lot of different places like zoos, places like forts and historic sites looking to communicate in a more game-like environment. Body, how can we detect movement as people or groups of people move? Many, many different examples of how we've done that, to ranging from LAX in the top left, where as you move through that environment, you've got interactive portals which change with content that is distinctive to all of the destinations served by LA. Jean-Paul Gaultier in the top middle again, all the way to entertainment, rock shows, C2 Montreal conference, which Cirque du Soleil and Sid Lee have been very instrumental in putting together in Montreal, where we test different interactive formats and different interactive technologies to to engage people with their environment. The connected objects, very important to us now. People can carry things through the environment and they become either touchstones, which the way that those act in proximity to each other or with parts of the installation can change the content and have different elements of a story activated. Devices, like I said, we see these devices as things that people become a part of the individual. We're designing for individuals and their devices, not for the space in between the individual and their device. Everything from basic phone features, I could tell you about installations where we have one or hundreds of people blowing into it, we have people waving it, people using it as a light source that we're detecting the thermal energy or the light of that, many, many different ways we can interact. And all of that is creating a connected experience, one of the things that people are increasingly coming to us for, and that combines a lot with the communications, marketing, website, often networks of museums, is how can we have an app that has additional features that people can activate and use as they move through a space, augmented reality, mixed reality, layering content into a space, not only through devices or on devices, but independent of that. Different stories that can be layered into the actual 3D of a space, using your space, letting your walls talk for themselves, that your walls can speak and they can become an interface. Connected visuals, I'm not going to spend any time on that. I'm going to close with, I've got a 2-minute video showing some of the interactive work that we've done. Should I show that or save it? Corinne? Just as a synopsis of many of the different kinds of effects and things that we can control using sensors in our environment and light, audio. Audio is a very important part I haven't talked about a lot. There's always a higher level of engagement if there's an audio soundscape to what we're proposing and not just a visual one. You can see how some of this manifests in more of an entertainment environment. But I would challenge you as people who will bring back messages and new ways of thinking to your museums to say, how could these solutions be adapted to telling the story in a meaningful way and doing takeovers of your spaces? Not to the detriment. I was speaking last night about some of the discussions we've had with some of the national museums in Ottawa, where there was a virtual museum program. A lot of work being done to digitize, take 3D scans of not only the exterior, but pulling apart elements of their collection, reassembling them. 95% of that collection is on the shelf in the warehouse, temperature controlled. People will never see it. But if we want to take those digital assets and make them available to all Canadians and to all the world, how could children, how could people come into those artifacts and explore them, get to know them, do something with it? So a world of different opportunities and approaches, and I look forward to answering your guys' questions.
Great, brilliant. It's great to start with you. Can I have some? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, great. Yes, really amazing, very lively, very dynamic. So, obviously, this is a curatorial approach to, the next stage of a generation of museums. So we are all people from communication. Yes. So, I also noted that you're doing experiential marketing. So how can we use these tools for us to do a better, UX experience marketing? So what is your advice for communication people?
Well, my advice is to create environmental experiences that people want to share. So because the idea of sharing comes from the root of having taken great pleasure and enjoyment in having engaged with your environment. Now, if there's all kinds of tools that we don't get involved, we don't offer web solutions, but we do link with web solutions that they're being provided by marketing and communications teams in all of the different clientele that we serve,
Yes.
destinations, to drive people to connect in a deeper way on site. We don't want them to have a full experience at home in their basement or on their digital device sitting in the middle of a crowd alone. We want them to come together because they will have an experience that they can only have by being there.
So it's really in the museum,
Absolutely.
yes,
That's
as a
the
destination.
key part is
Yes.
enhancing that museum experience.
Obviously, I mean, you're talking about LA airport and all these amazing places. They have money, and you know, in the cultural industry, we have less and less money. So, I mean, what is your advice to a very small museum who would like to do these kind of things? How should we move on?
I did a cross-country road trip last year to universities to see how they are training the next generation of designers who will confront these challenges. And what I witnessed was a disconnect between many of the different platforms that people would be studying, from video game to cinema, etc. But their ability to engage in a meaningful way with venues, with storytellers who have a story to tell. There's a tremendous amount of unlocked talent. Connecting with universities, connecting with colleges, technical colleges,
So with your
and
local
arts faculties, et cetera.
stakeholders,
Exactly,
engage.
in your community, where you can activate those people, include them, not necessarily as senior exhibit designers, but as a lab, as an environment, an incubator, where you can test ideas, get to understand things, and not necessarily invest in a huge installation that breaks the budget. And you want to pilot things as well. I think that would be another
So
recommendation.
we should act as a lab, as a creative lab.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next speaker talking about hacking, because it's extremely important. There's so much risk involved with potentially getting it wrong on your first try. These are baby steps and growing into one's skin with the digital solutions. It's not about putting the whole packet on it and betting that one approach is going to get it right the first time.
Do we have a question for Amahl? Because obviously that was first. Yes. Can you stand up and say who you are, please?
Hi, I'm Anya. I work for the IOC's Olympic Foundation for Culture and Heritage. And I really appreciated your presentation. I think it's very relevant for us because we're actually looking to tell a lot of stories related to cultural aspects of the Olympic movement, not only within the context of the Olympic Museum in Lausanne, but also in many different places around the world and in many different locations, urban locations, temporary installations and settings, and it's all about engagement. So in that context, I wanted to ask you, you spoke about, when you spoke about project management, you mentioned content, system, and scenography. And my next question will be about partnerships. And you showed some amazing projects on the screen with different technological tools. I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about how those projects actually happened and how different funders were involved? Were you involved in any of those conversations early on, or did clients already come with their partners and a budget and then explore some possibilities with you? Or do you actually have a network already in place because you work on many different projects and maybe know, okay, these guys can help you with technology?
I do have some answers for you. I think the question you've posed, a lot of people will want the answer. And I'll be around all day today. I was going to go back to Montreal at noon, but I've cleared my schedule to stay with you all through the evening. And I'm really, really looking forward to answering that question in detail. The answer is, increasingly we're being involved in those discussions with partners. There are certain cases where people have brought a range of potential partners to us to activate and light a spark to certain conversations. And that has unlocked much more funding even than they expected to bring to the table with partners. We've got a huge range of corporate and artistic partners that we've worked with in the past. and in some cases they can be brought to bear for projects. But
So
it's case by case.
Who's involved at the first stage in the process?
In the
Is it
project management, we have
curators?
producers. We have a producer-director relationship, and
But I mean, in the museum, who's involved?
the producer and a director. So we establish a producer-director relationship who will lead the development of budget, schedule, scenarios.
Yes.
What is the business plan of this installation? And the other side is driving the creative. What is the creative approach to this? And there, the director will be very
Yes.
involved in interfacing with sometimes 30, 40 different curators from different parts of history, gender, exhibit content, assets from different parts of a collection, and storytelling, the whole
Okay.
past storytelling. So
Very good.
it's a very collaborative type of process, and it's different. Every case is different. So we don't try and push a solution. We try and propose a process.
Yes, great. Other questions? No, it is quite intimidating to start the first morning. So, yes, can you give us some ideas of budget? That would be interesting to see, from a small budget to big.
Well, it varies greatly, partly because although we don't generally say yes to purely technical challenges, there are some museums that come to us and say, we know exactly what we want to do. We know the format, the storytelling, the engagement. Can you design the display system and the
Yes, so
technology?
how much?
So I would say our
Yes.
projects right now range from
Yes.
about 250,000
Okay.
to 10 to 15 million.
Okay, yes. So, and how much can you generate? Is there a return on investment that you can give?
The forest example that I gave, it's one of the things I wanted to spend a little more time on, but the forest was one of the 7 natural icons of Quebec, a national wonder of Canada, but it had declined to 5,000 to 7,000 visitors per year who would pay entrance into that park. They came to us and said, could we make some kind of attraction that would draw people into the park and tell some of the local story? $1 million investment that was spent in the first generation of that installation, first half season of operation, 77,000 visitors came to experience that night walk in 5 months, 6 months, 0 advertising, 0 marketing. It went viral. People were driving from Boston, 5-hour lineups per night. People couldn't get in, staying 3-4 nights in the region and getting to know the whole area. First full season of operation, 155,000 people paid $15 a head. You can do the math. Did they pay for its installation in the first year? Absolutely. Did it generate profit and revenue? Yes. Was every hotel full for 2 hours drive? Yes. You had to drive all the way back to Montreal to get 2-hour drive to get a hotel. Every restaurant, it broke Tim Hortons, it broke the gas stations, it broke the downtown parking. People were parked on residents' lawns. Do you want to have that problem in your community? No, but you do want to create challenging ways of attracting new visitorship. And working with some of the national museums in Canada, we've approached that challenge
drives
together.
a new audience
We have
to the museum.
200,000 people per year coming to this site. How could it be 300,000? What kind of ways could we engage with people?
So get your sponsor ready.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Amahl.
Thank you, Corinne. It's a
Was
real
great.
honor. Thank you, Agenda, for
again.
inviting
Great.
us to
Thanks
communicating
a
in the
lot.
museum.